Right away, everybody, welcome to the FreeMind Podcast. I have Ken Davidov with Taste Boosters. How you doing today, Ken?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Well, Ken, tell me a little bit about Taste Boosters and this extremely innovative, complete invention that you have created.
Well, I appreciate you asking because actually your listeners won't be able to see this, but I'll be showing you. You know, what I've done is I've been working for the last 15 years with electric current, a mild electric current, not like even so much milder that when you get a shock when you're walking across your rug. This is a real mild current. It's a microcurrent to the body. It's extremely safe. So what I've done is I've been working on products that use a mild electric current, battery power, and the human body as conductivity to generate this current, which really does a lot of things in different ways. So I'll get to the spoon in a second, but I started with a toothbrush, and that was my first tech. So what the toothbrush does is very similar. You have an electrode on the back of a toothbrush, you have an electrode by the brush head, and as you're brushing, a circuit is completed. A mild current is running through your arm that's holding the toothbrush. And what it does is it temporarily polarizes the plaque on your teeth. And that plaque has a negative charge. The plaque on your teeth that sticks to your teeth that you try to get rid of every day, that has a positive charge. So in nature, opposites attract. That's just the phenomena of nature. What we do is we temporarily change that charge on your teeth enamel from negative to positive. And like a magnet, two positives, they repel. And so what we're doing is we repel the plaque. So with our Hygienist Toothbrush, you really, really get a super great clean. You feel your teeth feel pearly like you left the dentist chair. Totally different tech than anyone's ever been used to. So that's our Hygienist Toothbrush. So it's been very successful for us over the last 15 years that since I started this tech. So what I've done is I've really sort of focused on more intellectual property, more patents, more things that I can do with using the body and a mild electric current for a health and wellness benefit. So now we fast forward to the spoon. We have a pandemic. The pandemic starts in, say, March of 2020. That's when everything in the States is shut down. So I had a very rudimentary prototype of the spoon concept. And when I heard that people were losing their sense of taste, which was a big thing with COVID, as you remember, I said, okay, wait a second here. Taste. I have something that may be able to help people. And it was becoming like a global thing, but we're in a pandemic and everything's shut down. But I am an entrepreneur and I have factories over in Asia that produce my products. So what I did was something that was almost unheard of. I actually designed, developed, produced, and shipped a product during the pandemic that was totally revolutionary. So that was SpoonTech. So what SpoonTech does, Nate, is that it takes a mild electric current. It has an electrode on the back of the handle. It has an electrode in the spoon bowl. And as you're eating, a mild current, you don't feel it, but it travels through the food. And as you're eating, it touches your lip and tongue. And what that does is it excites the taste receptors within the taste buds of your tongue. And it alters, enhances taste and flavor. And it neutralizes and suppresses sour, pasty aftertaste. So let's just say to your listeners, if anyone eats yogurt usually has a sour, pasty aftertaste. Everybody loves their yogurt, but they eat it and they don't know that actually a utensil that can get rid of that sour, pasty aftertaste, and that's SpoonTech. So the way it's wired and the way our technology works is that there's electronics inside the spoon handle, and you're looking at the spoon, you've seen it, but what happens is that we enhance sweet and salty and we suppress sour. Okay, we could wire it a different way, and we could enhance bitter and metallic, and we could suppress salty and sweet. That wouldn't be good. That's like if a lot of people when we came out with this said, "Oh, that's just like putting a battery on your tongue."
Right.
Okay, and they're right. They're not wrong. Actually, it is, because remember, you're using the human body, the tongue. If you had a battery sitting on your tongue, you'd have a battery, you'd be licking it, you'd be tasting all the things that you did when you were a kid. If you ever licked a battery, I mean, I've never done it, but people do it. And it's like a little, prank. But anyway, here's the deal. We've done it in such a way that you don't get the metallic and the bitter. And I would invite people, I don't want to invite them, but try eating a meal with a 9-volt battery in your tongue. You are not going to probably make it till the end of the meal. And that is why we have SpoonTech. So SpoonTech, the market is for people that have a problem with sour, pasty aftertaste, that want to enhance sweet and salty. Also for people that have lost their sense of taste, that might give them a little bit of a boost or a little energy on their tongue to get a little more flavor. And for people with compromised taste, people that, as you get older, Nate, as you get past the age of 40, you start to lose those 10,000 taste buds you were born with. And people with diminished taste, as they get older, especially people in their 70s and 80s that are in nursing homes or just have problems with taste, this can give them a little extra boost and help them and maybe improve their lifestyle. So we've been shipping this thing since July of 2021. So it took me 13 months to go from idea to shipments to consumers all over the world. We've shipped them to every country in the world, and it's actually a really fun, cool product.
Wow, excellent. So where and from your background, it's in prepping for this episode, extensive background, entrepreneurial spirit, a lot of accolades and credits. Obviously, a lot of entrepreneurs and product developers have aspirations on the TV realm, and you've been featured on Shark Tank before.
I have.
How was that? How was that experience for you?
Well, I mean, it's actually first of all, it's like a bucket list for an entrepreneur. So I will tell you, I was on Shark Tank for another product I did that uses electric current. It's called Lifted. It's a brain stimulation device that uses transcranial direct current stimulation. It's a real hot topic in neuroscience. So what happens is that you put two electrodes, two sponges into these electrodes. It sits on the forehead, the upper forehead of your head, which is the frontal lobe or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. It's an area that's known for cognitive benefit, like focus, attention, working memory. So what we came out with this device was, it's not a medical device. It's really for people that have problems with focus or sitting down. And it's really an alternative to a chemical stimulant. So if you were to get caffeine or you were to get a sugary snack or something because you're dragging, that's what most people do. But those are chemicals that goes through your body. It raises your heart rate. It travels through your pancreas, your stomach, everywhere. And then a little bit gets to your brain and it gets to the whole brain. So what we do with Lifted is we target an area of the brain that's known for cognitive benefit. You wear it 20 minutes once a day, and it's an alternative. I love coffee, and no one eats more sugary snacks than I do. But I will tell you one thing. If you use Lifted once a day, and we're the #1 selling TDCS headset in the world, and it's portable. But when you do this, here's the big takeaway. You are inducing what they call neuroplasticity. So that's the brain's way of training it's a brain training mechanism that it's the brain's way of adapting and learning over time. So the more you use lifted, using it with a task, like you're doing a spreadsheet or you're doing you're editing photos, you're reading something that you drink coffee for or have a donut. It's like that's the whole key. But you get better and faster and more productive over time if you use these TDCS devices. Now, you could say, well, why you're saying that? Well, I got into this because I have a certain technology that I own, a proprietary technology, but I got into this because there's 5,000 published studies on PubMed.gov, and there is 1,000 clinical trials. It's every single day. There's more and more on this particular, and this is going to be what people are using in the future, and it's an alternative to chemical stimulants. So the people at Shark Tank found me, and I went through I'd say a series of 3 or 4 sessions where they learned about the device, and then you sign a lot of stuff, and then they give you a producer, and basically you are on the road. They can cut you anytime. And I never really thought they were going to put a brain device on national TV because it's the brain. But we were vetted, and they have attorneys like anything else. But they also, Shark Tank's not as much about the cast. It is kind of about the show and the cast, but they also give people opportunities to present a new technology. I think that's one of the great things about them. I went into it, they sort of gear you up like you could get a deal, but they don't buy tech like mine. But they did want to introduce the tech to the world, and I give them a lot of credit for that. They've rerun that episode about 4 times on national TV, and it's been on CNBC about 6 or 7 times. So every time it's on, we get more and more customers. I mean, we got slammed by a couple of the sharks, but they didn't put us in a great light. But I'll tell you one thing, Nate, it was cool. They wanted my wife to be on with me because it was kind of a husband and wife thing. She's not in my business, but I looked at my wife before we walked down that tunnel, and I said, remember this, because we did our 90-second pitch, and then you're on and you're under the lights for about an hour, and then they edit it and put together the show. But it was cool. And and then I came back the next year. My episode didn't get filmed. I mean, it got filmed, it didn't get broadcast, but I think they saw something in me. They saw something in my innovations. So it was really cool to be on TV.
Well, yeah, obviously, in any time, in any aspect of business, you get called back. That's a compliment. You know what I mean? You got to look at that. I mean,
And
yeah.
I do. And look, a lot of people would say, oh my gosh, was it, but what you do, we have like 3 or 4 Sony, put on the internet. I mean, ones with 1.5 million views, things like that. I mean, there's a lot. You got to have thick skin to do anything when you go on national TV. But I will tell you, it was an awesome experience. I'm more about, I think life is you have challenges, good and bad. And if you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, and you just do it, sometimes you don't know that you might get something good out of it. And I have to tell you, that to me is why I'm still doing all this stuff, because I feel like I take on all these challenges and all this risk, but if you don't put yourself out there, you're just not going to be. You can't be in the game unless you understand. You have to have that thick skin. But I do want to tell you, for your listeners, coincidentally, because we're doing this, and it's November 29th, but I'm going to be on TV tonight on another national TV show called Snake Oil. It's after The Masked Singer on Fox, and it's at 9:00, and it's hosted by David Spade. It's got a couple of celebrities on it. I've already filmed my episode. It's not live, but it was an incredible experience, and it's a lot of fun. So anyone that's listening to this, if you tune in tonight at 9:00, you'll see me firsthand. You'll get to actually see what I look like. And then the other thing is you'll get to see a fun a funny show. So what they do is if you don't know snake oil, they take four real entrepreneurs, and then they have four snake oil entrepreneurs, and they create these items. It's really incredible how they do it. They try to make it really hard for the contestants to pick what's real and what's snake oil, and the show is getting really good reviews. It's kind of like not Dana Carvey. What's his name? David Spade.
Spade, yeah.
They actually are in a podcast together, those two. But and I like them both. But David Spade is kind of the anti-host. He's not like got the energy of a Drew Carey or a Bob Barker or a whatever. But he's funny. He's a comedian. And then they have these celebrities. It's a funny show. So I invite people to listen. They can see me, and it's a good escape. It's a fun game show. So that's tonight at 9 o'clock on Fox.
Excellent, Ken. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about too is a lot of, you're in the realm of concept to invention and product development. A lot of times we talk with different people and they're reformulating something that already existed or enhancing something that was a commodity. And I want to talk about I'm going to say the persistence, perseverance. Sometimes somebody might think you're crazy or anything like that, as far as sticking to what you're believing in throughout that. But also, there's a lot of times where I feel like people get emotionally involved in their brand or their business in the front end and aren't able to step outside and poke holes in it. But you're coming from things from more of a scientific background. So your intent is to poke holes constantly in yourself from the beginning. So I want to kind of what I'm getting at is talk to me about like how your mentality is to persevere through and accept any failure as a lesson and things like that, and how you build upon those failures to then get your finalized product that most people don't realize it's not the first time or third time or fifth time before you're going to hit it. And sometimes it takes a lot to get things down, especially when you're creating something from a concept of a blank whiteboard.
Yeah, I mean, you actually couldn't have asked the question or said it better. There is a great biography on, when I checked into the Hershey Lodge in Hershey, PA.
I live in York.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I
20
checked
minutes
into the
away.
Hershey Lodge, and they had this. When I went to the room, I'd already had a couple of Hershey bars they gave me at the desk,
Yeah.
and I watched when I turned on the TV. I guess it's running on a loop, the bio of Milton Hershey. And believe it or not, I watched this whole thing, and he failed, I think, 14 times with his candy companies. He couldn't get it right. And he kept picking himself up and getting it right till he got the right area, which is Hershey, with the cows and the importing of the cocoa and all the area that he needed to get it right. And he hit it with Hershey bar and all that stuff, and Reese's, and it's amazing, his story. But the story is, like you said, it's really about understanding what is failure and how to you can't be in my business of doing this unless you're a risk taker. You just have to have that in your blood. If you take a product, and a lot of entrepreneurs are one and done. They go into something and something comes up. It might be compliance with customs. They didn't think of something, or the molds came out and the product's cheap and it falls apart in consumers' hands, and then they're out of business. So what happens is that with me, my thinking is, okay, number one, if I'm going to go into something, I'm going to go into a category that I feel not only interests me, but it's something that no one else has done. Because I have two businesses. One business is where I develop products for other people, and that's what kind of pays my bills thing. I've been doing that my whole life. And then I've got my other business, which is my entrepreneurial companies. I've got these 4 LLCs with all these different products. That's what really gets me going, and it excites me. But I put my own money into it. I put my own, it's my labor of love. I mean, I do all of this, but I want to go into something that no one's done before. I want to go into something that's scientifically backed because I don't want people questioning it. I want it to be safe for consumers. So what an expert on is compliance, number one. I do all my testing, all my materials, everything I do has to be either FDA approved materials like the spoon because it's going in people's mouths, like the toothbrush and the spoon. No, no hazardous materials tested for that. No, I have CE testing, which is for electromagnetic. So everything is to everything passes, and it's to standard or better. And then I also have recycling and all these different things that I do because I want to put my package out. I want to put my product out. So, number one, I don't get any returns because it's defective. So, that is a key thing with me because I've been doing this so long is that my factories who know me know that Ken doesn't want anything that's going to come out of that factory that a bunch of people are going to say it doesn't work. And I've gone through that before. Don't think I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've had things where I've shipped to the first 100 customers and we didn't do it right. And then we had to go back. We'd ship them again, but I have to have it right. That's number one. And then the most important is getting the product right. And then the probably even before that is to make sure it's safe for consumers. So I don't want anything that's going on your head, that's going through your skin and your skull, and it's exciting the neurons in your head to give you more focus. I don't want to do something that's going to affect your gums, your teeth, that makes going to kind of give you like you feel it and it's like I can't brush my teeth with this stuff, it's too powerful. And I don't want somebody eating and saying holy Moses, there's something wrong. I don't like this taste. I don't like it. It's something's happening. So the one thing I can say, Nate, is that through all of my products, I get a few complaints here and there, but nothing, it's all safe. No one can say that they get an experience. So let me put it this way. You're from the York area, Hershey has a park, the amusement park, right? So you go on the new roller coaster, let's just say. You're taking your kids and you're going on the roller coaster and you're going to pay $35, $50 for on entry. You go in, you spend a day at the park, right? You would pay that money and it's 1 day experience. So the next thing that I would tell you about is why don't I put a spoon out? I have this out for $29, right? Sounds like a fairly pricey spoon, but it's just like your roller coaster ride. No one on the planet has ever taken a utensil, eaten with it, and it's altered their taste through their own, because taste is subjective. So the way you taste salty might be different from the way I taste salty. How you taste chocolate ice cream using SpoonTech might be different than mine. You might say it tastes like Godiva, and I might say, well, it tastes a little bit more like Toblerone. It's all impacted by everything I do is subjective. So when you say,
people don't
oh my
realize
God,
that snowflake aspect. People really
people are
don't
shooting you down.
the neurogastronomy of the core memories, and it's all tied to what your experiences of life are, is to actually how you're tasting things in a sense too. And it's incredible how limited you can kind of focus on things with food. And I appreciate you comparing the amusement park to a restaurant, because that's, at the end of the day, we've commoditized food, and we've taken the taste and we've taken the experience out of food to an extent. And whether we're looking at food, it's kind of, I feel like sometimes people take two paths. It's either we're looking at food as a suppressant of stress or crutch or comfort, let's use, because that word gets thrown around, or it's of a fuel. So we're just going to focus on the interiors of it and the output of what it's going to give us, and I don't care about what the taste is. And we've lost that middle ground of the experience. And I really appreciate what you've done, because that's exactly what it is you've taken it and said, no, we're going to go against the grain, and we're going to bring back this experience, because you can have that the selling point for your thing too is not even, I wouldn't even focus on, when I think about it, it's not even the money as much as it is how if I can give you a $500 experience every day, or $100 experience every day. what is that value to you from an experience, from a
Well,
stress?
that's exactly right, Nate. I mean, that's the crux of it, is that it's an experience that somebody, all it takes is one person for me to say, "Oh my gosh, I hate the taste of sour yogurt, and you've changed the way that I eat my breakfast every day." And you say to yourself, like, I go into this stuff, like you say, to just sort of give give people a chance, a choice, something that they can say in their life, wow, this is unique. And now that they're doing this, what else can they do? So Nate, I have a my next product is a beverage device that uses a mild electric current, and it takes a you can put a sparkling beverage like a seltzer, you can put a beer in there, you can put a soda, and it doesn't lose its carbonation. So as you drink, usually when you put a carbonated beverage in, after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it loses its fizz. But when you add a mild current to it, it actually keeps that. Every sip is like the first sip. So I'm with you. I think the ideas that people have and why they, whether it's for, like you said, for stress or things, or maybe it's the fact that they're calorie counters and they're doing all this stuff. If you're not going into a meal and really, I mean, that's the thing. When I grew up, and maybe you could share that, but it's like you want to go into food as like a pleasant, as like a great meal, whether you're with your family, you're with your friends, you're eating by yourself. You just don't want to overthink it, and I think that's what I think social media and all this stuff has kind of made us all sort of overthink what we have to do every day to survive.
And you're exactly right. I think that one thing is it was so well marketed. The artisanal crafted cuisine was so well marketed that it did become overly dramatized. And I spent many years in the craft beer world, and we started with very commoditized beers, very bland, very whatever in the late '90s, early 2000s. Then we got into the cork and cage series, and then we're doing the beer dinners and stuff. And while it was all very fun, it actually, at the same time, we were trying to be inclusive, and we were excluding people because it seemed like it was too much work to experience it. And when you start building all those barriers of like pairing food, and you have to do this and you have to do, once you say you have to have this to do this, people get turned off. But yours is different because yours is what enhances it from a scientific basis and from using your body as a tool as opposed to the accessory or anything like that. And all those things do those things as well. The certain glassware, I'm very excited. I'm going to be following that development as well, because that for our industry, specifically my main stuff in the alcohol world, I think there'll be those breweries and wineries and distillers will be clamoring for that technology when you're finished with that. That's for sure.
Well, I totally agree. And just so you know, I had during right before Halloween, I had an incredible pumpkin ale that I drank out of a pumpkin, and that was one of my highlights of this fall so far. Was having a few beers. They actually had the pumpkin, and taste is, when I finished, one of my friends said, we're drinking out of the pumpkin. He said, Did you think that the beer, could you taste a little of the pumpkin, in it?" And I said, "I'm not sure, but I think that maybe, it's such a good idea that you're drinking out of a fruit. Like
Yep.
if you hollowed out an apple and you poured something in there, would you be able to taste some apple with your what do they call it, your bourbon
Yep.
or something?" I love the idea of infusing things and just mixing things together. And one of the things with SpoonTech is that when we came out with this, we shipped it to every food company in the world. So remember, when you do like an Indiegogo thing, and this is the first time I did an Indiegogo, so we raised about $50,000 on that. We had about 1,200 customers, but a lot of them were food companies from Japan, from Korea, the biggest in the world, Coke. I mean, anybody that was in beverage food was buying the spoon, and rightfully so, because I did it. I came up with it because I had the tech to put this spoon, to put the microelectronics inside this handle. And you can see that it looks like a regular spoon, but it's got some serious electronics inside. Um, but I think they were all like, wait a second here. This guy, we work with taste every day. That's what we do. We put together cherry Coke or vanilla yogurt or whatever. And we never thought of a spoon or a utensil with electronics. What are we doing in our R&D? I'm not challenging them. I'm just saying I'm an entrepreneur who had the vision and the foresight to go ahead with something. Because remember, I could make this, Nate, 100 times faster than any company that has to go through all of their internal stuff just to get something approved. So the great thing is that I didn't want to just run around and say, hey, I have a prototype of something that might help people that lost their taste with COVID. I said, I'm going with it. I'm doing it.
You
It's
got it.
doing it. So that's where the risk factor comes in. Like, I don't even have my kids in this business because, you have to be able to go to bed at night and sleep. So,
Sure, not from a product development side of things, but my business has been around since 2010 as when I founded this business. And a lot of times we were talking about the infancy of business throughout how the evolution happens. And you talk to people and instantly they're like, oh, did you start? When did you start? 5 years ago, 6 years ago? I'm like, no, I've been doing this a long time. In 2010, been grinding all the way through and things. And it started out as just booking bands. So I loved music. We were going back to finding a passion that you love and then find a way to make money. That was something my family had always said. Grew up blue collar and everything like that. Well, me and my three cousins graduated the same year. We're the same ones that first ones went to college and did all that stuff. And one of the things was after that was I wanted to carve my own path. I said I've seen so many things of family being laid off or different things happening. I said I'm not going to let that happen to me. I don't want anybody to control what my destiny is. And I started right at the senior year of college. I started this business, and just right out of there, I said, and worked full time and this was a side business. But once it got to the point where it matched my income, I had to start considering, the amount of time I was spending and where to go, and eventually made that transition and took what I was doing as a full time person and then did it as a consultant, so that it gave me the freedom to be able to bring in more projects and kind of grow it out from there. But through that, my point of what I'm trying to get at is a lot of failures throughout the way. And I really, I kind of, I pride myself and I want to always spend time communicating with people that have persevered through, because majority of people do not. And majority of people will give up. And I've talked to a few people on this podcast, especially, that started business and conceived them and then grew them during COVID. And then I talked to them about that. That's a whole nother world where growing something from with all the obstacles of communication and the collaboration that existed there. But you can if we can fill a wall with the life lessons, is what I call failures, is really what it is. And people are like, oh, wasn't that expensive? I said it's part of life's tuition. It's a tuition bill you
right.
got to pay sometimes.
Right, and I totally agree with you. Your circumstances. First of all, I mean, everything you do is, if you can't get experience from your childhood, or I grew up. My dad had 3 drugstores in Washington D.C. I was 8 years old. The thing I wanted to do the most was work at his drugstores, because my dad was like had a vision for product. He put stuff in. He did all this stuff, but it was rough neighborhoods. It was this, and I was young, and I just wanted to be around my dad. But that's where I honed those skills. It's just like you saying, you wanted to carve your own path, and you we're all we all go through life with a whole bunch of ups and downs. And and if anybody says, in business, oh, piece of cake, it's easy, then you don't want to be in business with people like that, because they're not being honest. And I'm not saying, I need to be around people that have failed or have been, that have, you don't want to be with a factory that doesn't know how to make a product. But I will tell you, genuinely, I want to be around people who understand what it means when you do make a mistake,
Mhm.
what it feels like. Because I usually tell people, and I usually take the blame for mistakes. I'll say, shame on me. I should have looked more closer. I should have given you guys more of an opportunity, because I don't want to lose people because they make a mistake if they're talented. But man, I tell you, I would rather be around people who are humble, that understand, that love something. But if you're not making mistakes, then you're just not working. And that's just the bottom line, is that, there's stress in everything we do. When I do these projects, you have to do your homework first. You got to say, is this right for me? Number two, for me, it's about, is there a patent? Is there an opportunity to protect this? Okay. A lot of people say, patents are a waste of money. Not for me. Okay. If I'm talking to a bigger company and I got a chance, I better have a patent. That's the first thing they ask on everything you do with a company, is they say, tell us about your patents. You don't have a patent, they don't even want to talk to you. Even if it's a little lowly patent, a design patent, whatever. And then the other thing is, who's going to make it? Can you trust them? Do they even know how to make it? You have to give yourself a time frame. You have to say, am I in this for a month or two? It's just like you were saying with the consulting or all the things. You have to give things a time where you have to say, okay, this isn't working out. This isn't going to happen the way I wanted it to. You either have to step it up and ramp it up and find ways to adjust and serpentine and make it happen, or you got to drop out of the game. And that in itself is a stressful thing. So what you want to do is keep it fun. Anything you do in life. For me, it's like, if it's not fun for me and I can't talk to guys like you and, have a beer, shoot the shit, and tell you about what I like to do as a person, and get to, break bread with you and get to know you a little and keep it real. I can tell you what's not real. Prototypes.
Mhm.
Prototypes in my business, it's like, you run around with a prototype, that's fantastic. So many companies have prototypes. But the question is, can you commercialize it? Can you actually put it in an injection mold? Can it actually be made at a high speed? Can you make not more than one a day? Can you make 10,000 a day? Can you do all these? These are all things that matter in the sense of cost and reality. So my question is, you gotta, if you're gonna go for it, you gotta just sort of speak up. You gotta, it's like anything in life. You gotta say, listen, today's my day. I want to start something new and I want to go for it, whatever it is. But that's the way you have to be in business. And if you're an entrepreneur or you're anything, if you got to make it fun for you and you want to make it as stress-free as possible. And, I believe that, I'm going to leave this discussion making a new friend, but also understanding that the people, everybody's different and everybody's got a challenge. And I hope that for you and your listeners that, they see somebody that isn't in their, that they don't read this kind of, you don't see people like me all the time.
Right.
I mean, I'm a, I'm an old soul in many ways, but I'm also, like, I think, a visionary for product. And that's from a years of experience and failures with a capital F, and success with a small lowercase s. Because if you ask me, if you want me to BS you to death, I'll say, yeah, look at me. Look at me. I was on Shark Tank. That's the last thing I'm going to say. If you want to say, am I real? Will I give you the real deal? I'll talk you out of going into my business. You set me up with a bunch of kids that are in college and you say, hey, I'd love to do what you're doing. The first thing I'd say is, no, you wouldn't. No, you would not. And I'll tell you why. And if they come back and say, but I can do this, I can do that, then maybe you are cut out for it. I'm not cutting anybody off, but I am going to keep it real.
Well, that's what a lot of times different businesses or different jobs kind of get the wrong impression. I mean, when I started out, I started out in the alcohol world and distribution, and people were always like, "Oh, that's so awesome! You sit in a warehouse with millions of cans and cases of beer and kegs all day long." I'm like, "Well, when I started out, it was supposed to be just a summer job. I was fixing broken cases of beer that literally would fall off the truck. We'd spray them down, power wash them, sterilize them, and then repack them and then resell them. And I did that for an entire summer all the way through. And then from there with marketing, all that other stuff. And at the end of the day, I spent all that time in the food and beverage world, and everybody's like, "Oh, must be so exciting." And you realize it is exciting because you love it. But at the same time, when you distill everything down, people don't realize it is the same job. It has Excel files, it has reports, it has meetings, it has all
Right.
the things that every job has. It's just what we're talking about is something that interests us and interests you, and it interests you in recreationally, and it interests us both ways. And that's kind of a different way to look at it. And I like what you said too about the conceptualizing scale, because that is one of the things that we find is like when I'm working with clients, so we work and help them into wholesale. So going from a single operation where they're the on-site where people are drawn to them immediately, and then taking that mentality to then changing the psychology of how does your brand, where it's not having organic people walking to you where you can control the sale, how does your brand tell the story on the shelf as if you were behind the bar or behind the register or wherever it was in your shop? And I think that working through with our clients to get them to that place where they can understand how they have to have two different strategies for the way that they go to market is kind of it's challenging for a lot of people to do. And I appreciate you bringing that up because it's a lot of things where it's like, oh, I make it and give it to the distributor and then I'm done, and they don't realize that you still it's not a yeah, what are the old days of the stack them high and watch them fly? I mean, that's not the way it is anymore. Brands are engaging, brands are educational, brands are a part of your life, and they're emotionally tied to someone's home. And people put a lot of thought into what they're bringing into their home now. So I definitely appreciate you bringing touching on
And
those.
when you just said what you just said, when you said a lot of people are like, "Yeah, I make it, I give it to the distributor, and I'm
Yeah,
done." And you really want to say, "No, no, no, you're just beginning."
they tell me that all the time. I have it. It's called a DR. It's a DRM, distributor relationship management, and that's our entire gradual course where we teach them and then coach them all the way through, help them in with the sales to get them ready for wholesale. And so many from those phone calls and those pitches at the end of it, they're like they don't want to invest in it because of that mentality. And the ones that do immediately see the results. I just persistently keep reminding people, and a lot of times you have to just let them go, and you say, okay, well, that's fine. And then they come back and they complain about the distributor. And then you're like, well, when you start to drill it down, you realize that it's the relationship and it's the expectations that are not aligned. And that those have to be aligned in order for everybody to grow successfully. And well, hey, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And everybody make sure they tune in tonight. Snake Oil on Fox.
Yes, and Nate, pleasure meeting you. Really, really wonderful, and I wish you the best in the holidays. And I hope we talk again soon.
Absolutely, to you as well. And this will not be our last conversation, I'm sure. I really appreciate you taking the time. Very enjoyable talking to you.
Thank you.
You take care. Have a great
Cut it out.
All right, gotcha. Yep.
Cut it.
Cut
Anyway,
out.
so listen. So really great talking to you.
You
And
too.
I hope I didn't. I have a gift of gab. I hope I didn't over talk.
No, not at all. You promise. You're good.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think it was fun. So keep me posted. Do whatever you want. I know we put a lot of time into this, but you could. I think most of your stuff is usually 30 minutes or
Yeah,
whatever.
usually it usually stays around 30 minutes or so. And I will work on that here. I'll work on that actually here today, and then try to send you over the draft here tonight. That way we can log it in for Wednesday, and it'll be. I like to do 5 a.m. when I drop them, just because it logs into people's news feeds. So it'd be Spotify, every podcast platform it'll land on. So Spotify, Apple, Google, all those.
Yeah, and I like the fact that we did it for next Wednesday because it's kind of got a little. It's something to look forward to between Christmas and New Year's. You know, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it gives me some
Anyway,
extra. Gives us some extra promotional stuff too. So I'll
listen,
send that stuff over to you.
I'm really glad we connected. And you
Absolutely.
know, if you don't mind sending me your address, I'll send you a couple spoons and some toothbrushes.
Oh, that'd be perfect. That's awesome. Thanks so much, Ken. I
Love to.
appreciate it.
I'd love to, and you'll have fun with them. So
Absolutely.
send me just text me. I'm not text me. Email me your mailing address, and they'll go out tomorrow or today.
All right. Thanks, Ken. Hey, you have a great Thanksgiving. I appreciate it.
So, appreciate it. Take care, Nate.
Yep. Have a great day.